My name is Taylor, and I've been attending the Abbey on and off since about 2014. Growing up, I was definitely what you would probably call a church kid. I grew up at a United Methodist church in the Kansas City area, and I was at Sunday school every Sunday, and then I was at youth group every Wednesday, and I was there half the other days in between. So when I moved to Omaha, where I knew absolutely no one, I knew the first thing that I needed to do was to find a church. And so I went on Google and I typed in Omaha United Methodist Church because the church I grew up in was a Methodist church. And the first thing that popped up was First United Methodist. And this was at the time when the Urban Abbey was still growing out of First United Methodist Church. So I thought, okay, I'll check this place out. And I showed up one Sunday morning and I went to the service. And afterwards, I was standing out in the narthex, and Deborah walked up to me and she said hello. She was talking to me, asking me if I was visiting. And I said, I just moved to the area from Kansas City. And she looks at me and she goes, "Are you Taylor Bickle?" And I said, yes. And inside, I was thinking, how does this person know my name? And it turns out that one of the pastors at my church growing up had told Deborah that I was moving to Omaha and that she had to find me. And being Deborah, she did. So shortly after, I started attending the Urban Abbey, and this was during a time when I was, dealing with a lot of mental health problems, and I had a lot of severe depression, and I even considered taking some time off of school and moving back home at one point. But the Urban Abbey was always a place where I felt safe and welcome and included. And when I was thinking about this reflection today, there's this Bible story that I thought of that growing up I didn't really give a lot of thought to. And it's the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. So the way I was always taught the story was that there's this crowd on a hillside that Jesus is talking to, and they start to get a little restless because there's nothing to eat and they've been there for a long time. And the disciples come to Jesus and they say, you have to send all these people home because there's nothing to feed them. And Jesus, says to the disciples, how can you not trust me after all the things that you've seen me do? And he tells them to go out in the crowd and find food for all the people to eat. And in the story, the way I learned it, is that the only person who thought to bring any food that day is this boy who has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And the disciples bring the food back to Jesus, and he multiplies it, magically, and there's suddenly enough for everybody. And a few weeks ago, Deborah preached about this sermon in a slightly different way than the way that I had always thought about it. And she said, maybe the miracle isn't that Jesus took this bread and he multiplied it, but maybe the miracle is that everybody was so inspired by this gift of generosity by this one child that they gave the food that they had brought too. And when everyone shared everything, there was suddenly enough to go around. And to me, this story perfectly captures what the Urban Abbey is all about. It's a place filled with radical hospitality where whether there are 10 people or 100 people in this small room, we always make space and there's somehow always enough. When I was a student studying at Creighton, there was a day during finals when the power all across campus shut down. And everybody was kind of freaking out because no power meant no Wi-Fi, and we had to study for exams. So a group of my friends and I came down to the Urban Abbey to study, and when we walked in, this whole room was filled with students. At every single table, there were probably, 75 or so people in here. And Deborah was pulling chairs and tables out from the back room to make space for everybody. And that's what the Urban Abbey really means to me. It means a place where everyone is welcome, where we seek out and invite other people, and where people give up their seats when the room gets a little too crowded, where when times are hard, people support one another and share what they have, where somehow there's always enough to go around. So I hope the next 10 years of the Urban Abbey's life see it continue to be a place that welcomes everybody and a place that always makes room, a place where the leaf is in the table and the door of welcome is always open wide. So may we have the courage, and may it be so.